Hello everyone, this is Chris Jamel at Exiton Interactive, and in this video we are going to wrap things up with our splash screen. One of the main things that we're going to tackle is to have a single location that we specify the classes that we're using for our animation. So we'll specify our classes in our Sass. We'll use those variables within our function, within our mixins, and we'll also pass those to JavaScript so that we can use those same classes within the JavaScript without having to rewrite them. We'll take care of a few other things. If we check out the splash screen now, it's blocking user input. By the time that we're done, once the splash screen is animated out, we'll be able to once again click on the links and tidy up a few other things. We'll take care of all of that in this video. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started here. So where we left off here now is our animation runs, it works. And of course we have these classes in our Sass file that we want to have applied. We're basically defining what happens when those classes get applied to our components. And of course we need to know what those classes are inside of our component in order to apply them. So it would be a good thing to have these class names defined in only one location. So that's what we're going to tackle first. So inside of our animations folder, we're just going to create a new file, and I called it animations classes.scss in this case. And I said previously when I decided to use the SASS extension, I'm more used to SCSS. And I'm not sure whether this can be done in Sass or not. I tried a little bit, couldn't get it to work, so we're going to do it this way. So all I'm going to do here now is to define some Sass variables which have the classes that we want. If you put these in strings, in quotes here, they'll work inside of the Sass, but when we get to JavaScript, we'll have quoted strings. So you'll have an extra set of quotes around the strings. You'd have to remove them. So let's just leave the quotations off of these things. We'll save that in the fade Sass file now. We're able to import that now. So let's just add import and what I call it, animation classes. So what we want to do is to have these things replaced by those, and what we'll do is just a little bit of string interpolation here. So all we have to do is surround this thing. Well, first we have the hash, and then the curly braces, and then our $sign on those. And now it'll see this variable, and it will print this in its place. So we have to do that for all of them. Not forgetting my $sign there. So of course we'll take care of the in. The ones that we can't use or aren't using yet. So we have all of our in. Come down here and do our out. So that's one down. And the last one. Two down. Save it. Boom. It's always good when I see something mess up. What are we looking at? Oh, because I named it animations classes. Why? So remove my S here, and we're back to working again. So, and it fades out. That's good. So we can close the Sass file. Now back to our animation classes here. So that takes care of it inside of our CSS. Now we want to have this available in JavaScript. And to do that, we're just going to say : export in our brackets here, or braces, whatever. And I'm just going to copy these in. So it's basically just me. This is of course, left side is the key of our object, which is going to give us the variable. I'm going to add in these extra two fade in, fade out, which are just going to be printing these things out. We'll use them to, along with active before and active after and before to create the keys to get these objects. Is it overkill? Maybe. Who knows? So we'll close that. Now we're back to our animation object, animatable item for a moment. But if we tried to use this, I guess we could try right now, right? What we want is to import animation classes from, and that lives at /components animations animation no classes.scss, and we get this little squiggly here telling us that cannot find the module. Fine. We're going to shortcut fix this. When we created the project, this had this shims-view.t.ts file was added for us. I would normally put this in a different file here. I'll figure out how to add that so that it's picked up. But so for the moment, what we're going to do is just borrow it or add to it. So we'll declare a module, and in that side .scss. And what it'll do then is to say that the content is going to be, and it's an object which will have a string indexer, return a string, and then we just export default content, save that. Now we're back to being good to go because it knows what's coming in. Save that for a second. All right, so now we have our animation classes. Let's come down here to animate. So we'll do this temporary. So const temp is equal to, actually let's just name it animation to be done with it. Oh, that's why I didn't do it before. So I've got this animation string going on up here. For the moment, let's just stick with stuff. Temp is equal to animation classes, and what we'll look for inside of there is fade out. So now what we'll do is we have the temp. Instead of doing this, what we'll do is create us a helper method. So come down here, private get CSS class. What we're going to do is pass in the index, which is a string. We'll get out of that CSS is animation classes of index. Be good to know if we've made a mistake. So type of CSS, if that's equal to undefined, then we'll just say something like console.warn, and we'll say CSS animation class for that item is undefined. Save that, and we'll just return empty. Otherwise, return CSS. Now, we'll get a linting thing, and I'm planning on leaving that there, so we'll just say tslint disable next line no console. So now back up into our item here, animate method here. What we'll do is to say, now we'll say this dot get CSS class. The one that we're looking for here is sort of the root of it is the temp, and this should be the before one, right? So now we'll do the same thing, but make this active. And last but not least, we want that one to be after, and temp is of course the same thing. Now one thing that I did add here, and doesn't really matter for us at the moment here, is to say that this dot after CSS class is an empty string. Reason for this is not, and it doesn't matter for us now because of course the thing is going to be mounted. There aren't going to be any, they're all empty, and then we just add them and animate the thing out, so we don't care after that. Thing is, at some point in time we're going to deal with some routing which will animate the view out and animate the view in. It's going to be the same view, So once we animate it out, it will still have this after CSS class hanging around. So when we want to bring it back in, we're just going to set it to be empty string here, right? That's just, I guess, a little future proofing. Now, of course, when we're doing this indexing by string of an object, because of the way that our TSLint is configured, is going to give us a little linting error. So I'm going to fix the TSLint by saying string literal, no string literal to be false. I do it a lot anyway. Little side note there. All right, so now we can save things. I don't think we've busted anything yet. I think it should still work. All right, so let's deal with the fact that we need to be able to tell our animatable item what animation to run. Right now we have this string hanging around here that's not doing anything, and I don't want to use strings anyway. So inside of our animations folder here, we're going to create a new file because I can't think of a better name for it. We're just going to call it types. So inside of types here, we're going to export an enum animation types. We'll have one that's none, fade in, fade out. It gives us some types, and we're going to export an interface, which is on iAnimate options. You'll just have a type, which is an animation types. Perfect. So this will just be the thing that we pass in to the animate function or method. All right, so now back to our animatable object here, and where are we at? Let's come down here, import from component slash animation slash types, and we want animation types and animate options. So first thing first, our subject is going to pass us that. Now we'll just call it options. So now we're getting passed in those options. And let's create, we're going to get an enum. We need to effectively get this temp string. And the way that we're going to do that, by coming up here, private, read only, and what did I call it? Animation map, new map. It's going to take in an animation types, and it's going to give us a string back. Perfect, so let's define it. It's not what I wanted. So we have two currently, right? Animation types dot fade in. That will give us animation classes, and that's fade in. And we want animation types dot fade out, which is animation classes fade out. Perfect, hopefully. And while we're at it, let's create a private type, which is going to equal animation types dot none to begin. All right, so now through our options, we can say this dot type equals options dot type. And now we're going to name this thing animation. And though this animation is going to be, let's just change this to be this dot animation map dot get this dot type. Perfect. So now we need our animation. Redo it down here for temp. Animation. So now I've done all that copying and pasting here. Let's make sure I haven't skipped anything. Last thing I do want to do is then say this. Once the animation is done running, we'll say that it's now equal to none. Save that. Now we've busted things. So if we look, of course now our console is telling us that the animation class is messed up. That's of course because inside of our splash screen, we're still passing a string along. So actually what we're going to do is able to, have I done that yet? Nope. First things first, let's do this. So inside of animations, we're going to create an index.ts file just to make it easier to import and export all this stuff. Plus I don't like default exports to begin with. So, oops. So we'll export the default as animatable item, and that of course comes from components / animations / animatable item.view. And then we're also going to export star from components animations / types. Save that. Now back to our splash screen. So let's modify this import. And it now lives just in animation. So we have our animatable item. Let's get animation types and also iAnimate options. So we'll have an iAnimate options subject here. Let's change this to our object and animation types dot fade out. And I think that's all that we have to do. All right, so it's phase out and we have no console log statements. That's good. But we have this little hidden problem here, and what we're doing is just fading out the splash screen, which means it's still there, which means it's there to intercept our interaction with the application. So it's getting clicked on right now instead of me being able to click the links. Of course, there's a few things we could do, CSS, to say that, don't intercept any interactions. We'll need some ability later on to know the stage that our animation is at. So let's go ahead and do that now. So what we'll do is we'll go back into our types file, which is inside the animations folder. And we're going to create another enum that we can use. So I call this animation stages, which I guess if I'm going alphabetically belongs up here. All right, so if you sort of read them right to left, we have post or after the application of the active class, before the application of the active class, and of course we have the rest of them. So let's just save that, close it. So we'll go back to our animatable item here. So the way that we're going to do this is I'm going to say that the user can provide me a function that I'm going to call, and I'm going to pass in the stage that we're at. And we're going to do that, of course, through a prop. Now I'm able to work this prop identifier here. Can't even think of the decorator, proper word. So the prop decorator, I can get it to work if I want a default value of like a string or a number or something like that. In this case, I wanted to have a default function. Couldn't get it to work, but that's okay. So we'll just come up here and add it to our component decorator. So we'll say props, and that's an object. It's going to have a function or a thing on it, which is update. That thing of type function, and we're going to set a default for it, which is just nothing. It's not going to do anything. So now we have that. Now if we use this $props we won't get any IntelliSense to help us out. So let's fix that. So public $props, and that's going to be set for us. And $props is going to be view props. I did copy the wrong one, and so let's view props, whatever the props are, plus the thing that we are adding to it, which is an update. And that update is a function which will take in an animation stages and give her output nothing, void. All right, so let's create us a little helper method again. Down here, we'll say private update with pre and post. So we'll say pre animation stages post animation stages, and we'll have some function that gets sent to us, takes nothing, outputs nothing. So then we'll just say this dot $props, and so now we have the IntelliSense for the update. So we'll pass in pre to it. This dot $props dot update post, and this will be where we apply our classes. So with that method, we'll come back up here, take a look at before here. So what we're doing, or what we want to do, is to say this dot update with pre and post, and we'll update that with animation stages dot after apply pre, not active. So before we add the after class, and then animation stages dot after apply post, and then we need to do our, or add in the function to apply it, which is just not the one that I was attempting to do. I don't know why I'm doing this one. So what we really want is, what we're doing is the before. So let's do before and before, and this is what we want to do, right? Let's grab that, put it there, and now we just get rid of this. All right, so now we'll update, call that update function before we apply before, or after we apply before, and in between that we'll apply it. So instead of me typing all that stuff out again, if we come down here, we now have where we're dealing with the, oops, that's what I was doing, I'm looking at the wrong spot. So we have before done. So here we are adding the active. So now we'll have add active, and over here we are removing the before. So now we have the updating of the removing of it. So when animation ends, we'll have after being applied, and we have active being removed. You can save that. It's not going to do anything at the moment. So let's go back to our splash screen here. So inside of the splash screen, we're going to update our template. And what we'll do is just say v-bind update, and that's going to be update animation stage, one we're going to define here later, v-if. So if not is animated out. I also have to add that here real quick. So in our imports here, let's bring in our animation stages. Let's add us a data property. Our field is animated out, and that's going to be false. And we need our update method. So private update animation stage animation stages. Let's just switch on that stage. And the case I chose to use was after apply post. And this dot is animated out will be true, break. Save that. For good measure, we're going to refresh because it caught me last time for whatever reason. So now, hopefully, see if I hover over it, I can now click on the links, because now our if statement it's been animated out. So we're saying this is now false, so the if is removing it, and we no longer have it blocking our user input. I think for the most part that takes care of all of our splash screen, except that one thing, let's do dealing with the animatable object. This thing that we're doing here, I'm going to do it more than once, I think, not only with the props, but like I said, with refs. So let's make it a little bit easier to use that thing. So inside of our source folder, we're going to say new file, so it's a sort of root of our source. We're going to call it types.ts. And inside of there, let me just copy this. We're just going to create sort of a generic type, which the type T is going to extend object. So we're going to be passed in an object, which is just going to do the same thing that we did already. So if we go back to animatable object, what we can do now is to come up here and import that. Maybe we import it here, import from types, and that's props. So what we'll do is take out our object, and we'll just say that this is now props, and pass in our object, and so we'll have the same, still have the same IntelliSense, just makes it a little bit easier to use. Like I said, we'll return to that and probably use it for refs as well. But I think that takes care of it. Like I said, our animation for our splash screen is done. So splash screen is done, and we have sort of infrastructure for doing animations. So we're going to have to figure out something new to talk about next video. I think maybe we might start dealing with some routing, but we'll have to wait till then. But until then, I will talk to you later. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video. I know that your time is valuable. If you liked the video, please subscribe to our channel and click the thumbs up button, as well as share the video with your friends. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please leave them in the comments section below. And once again, thank you, and I will talk to you in the next video.